An insecure person will make you feel insecure for setting boundaries. And this is not talked about enough because if you're new to setting boundaries and speaking up for yourself in a relationship, friendship, whatever it is, then you're probably coming from a very vulnerable place where it took a lot of courage and self encouragement for you to be like, okay, I'm ready, I can do this. And it was probably really scary for you to bring up whatever your needs are because it's not something that you're used to. And even if it is something that you're used to, it's still a vulnerable moment because you're telling this person, this is what I need, and if you can't give it to me, then I might walk away. And if the person's response to that is, you're being so insecure, like you are asking for too much, you always ask for too much, then in reality, they're just projecting their insecurity onto you because they're afraid that you'll leave if they cannot fulfill those needs. And because that's scary, instead of taking responsibility and being like, okay, like I see that this matters to you and I will do everything that I can to respect your boundaries, to respect these priorities that you've set. Instead, if they're like, you're so insecure, you're asking for too much, like stop being too much, you're being dramatic, like it's because they're afraid that once you realize that they can't step up to the bar, that you'll leave and they won't have access to you anymore. So instead, they undermine your value and your worth, and they try to put you down so that they activate your fear and cause you to stay. And it's really toxic because the person who's bringing up these boundaries may not have had that much practice in speaking up for their needs, and it may be their first time, or it could be a scary thing because it is kind of scary to speak up for yourself sometimes, especially if your partner or friend or whoever it is responding to you in this way. But I think that in that moment when the person rejects your boundary or tries to put you down because of it, a lot of people will revert back to their fear or their scarcity mindset and be like, oh, okay, like maybe they're right and maybe I am overthinking it, and they'll go off by themselves and maybe just like think like, am I asking for too much? And the gaslighting there is so frustrating because usually you do have care for this person, and that's why you're willing to speak up for these boundaries and needs, because you don't want it to end. You want to salvage it but also feel respected in the partnership that you have. And when someone undermines your value and causes you to question, like, am I asking for too much? Am I doing this? It creates a really toxic dynamic because then you step back and you accept less than you deserve because you're like, oh, maybe I was asking for too much, and maybe it is okay that they do this sometimes in these situations. And in reality, that gives the other person too much power because they now know that your boundaries aren't firm and they can kind of push you in any which way, and they end up holding the power in the dynamic. And I think it's really hard because this is not something that we talk about enough. This is not something that we're taught, and setting boundaries can feel mean sometimes because sometimes it's as much as it shouldn't. Sometimes it's hard to say, like, this is what I need, and if you can't give this to me, I'm willing to walk away, because a lot of times we have a lot of care and empathy and love for this person that's in our life, and we want to make it work. And I think that the reality is that your love for yourself has to be bigger than your care for the other person, because if they're willing to disrespect you, to undermine your worth, to put you down in order to have the easier version of you where they don't have to stick to the boundaries that you've set and they can undermine you so that they can still act however they want, it's gonna lead to such a toxic situation because you're constantly gonna be so mindful of how they're treating you, and they're constantly gonna be so mindful of like, oh, but what if they were serious? What if they leave? And just the response that someone has when you tell them, this is what I need, these are my boundaries, is so telling of their character and who they are. And if you want to really build something with someone, whether it's like a partnership or a friendship or whatever it is, you need to be with someone who will hear your needs, make you feel appreciated, will not just shoot you down just for the sake of feeling in power. And when someone tells you you're insecure for setting boundaries, just know that that's probably a projection of what they're feeling and their fear that you'll leave them if they can't meet your boundary. So stay strong, you've got this, and we need to be talking about this more.